This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Good morning and welcome to Community Church. We come here to let our light shine and unify our lights together to create a flame of justice and community and love. How did that come out? Pretty good? My name is Dean, and I'm called the administrator and music director of the church. And it is my immense pleasure to welcome this morning a songwriter of prodigious prolificity. I just came up with that one too. I'm just, as the years go by, I just appreciate more and more the music and songwriting craft and artistry of this man. And he's played many times here over the years and sings songs on many topics. And I can hardly wait to hear what he's going to offer us this morning. Folks, welcome Terry Kitchen.
Thank you. It's great to be back here. This is one I wrote back when I was still using the name Bill Withers. So if you guys probably all know it, so please join me. It's called Lean on Me. Sometime in our lives, we all have pain and we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend, and I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have strength that you need to borrow. For no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend, and I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, if you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. If there is a load that you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road and I'll share your load if you just call me. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend, and I'll help you carry on. For it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. We all need somebody to lean on.
after that again, didn't you? Because his name now is Terry Kitchen, and I love that song. I love another one of Bill Withers that I just heard, was reminded of, I heard it a long time, Lovely Day.
Yep.
That is a beautiful song, and I want to learn it. Hi, everybody. I want to start with a poem by a man who's presenting next Sunday virtually. His name is Ketu Oladua. He did a concert here about 3 weeks ago in April, and this is by way of announcing a change in next Sunday's presentation. We do not have Jill Stein and Miko Peled. That has been postponed because of campaign rerouting reasons, and Miko also had a enormous conference that was at the last minute to attend. So we're still on their case, and we are going to have them together, the two of them. But Ketu has generously offered to join us next Sunday, and I want to read a little poem by Ketu. And what I do is just open a page and read it. There's a photo on the top of Angela Davis, and here's how the poem goes. And you talk about the revolution and how you're going to change the world, change yourself. And you talk about the revolution and all power to the people, talk about yourself. While doing the same old jive things in time to larcenous rhyme, ripping off nickels and dimes in time to your greed, your psychological self-conscious need for things white, things not of or like you. This poem is called Attendee for Tamu, and there's a footnote that says Attendee is a Swahili epic poem, and this one was written for Angela Davis. It's the poem where the author first heard his own voice while on death row, 1968. Then we have another little reading, which I love to do occasionally, and this is from Eduardo Galeano, my favorite Latin American author from Uruguay. This is called Children of the Days, and there's a offering for every day of the year, and I never know and never have the foresight to read it first to find out if it's appropriate, but it always is. Why? Because this is Community Church of Boston, that's why. And we are on May 19th, right? Yeah, 19th. 18th was last night. You know why I know? Because Betsy Rose was here. And Betsy did a beautiful concert for us. I urge you to go to the YouTube recording of Betsy's concert. She's just a light unto all of us going into our senectitude, you know what that word means? Our age. And that would include me, 70th birthday next week. And I'll talk about that later. But here's May 9th, I said 20th, didn't I? 19th. Thanks for helping me keep up with myself. This is called The Prophet Mark. Mark Twain proclaimed, I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It is coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it. The Almighty has said, no doubt, now here are these two unaccountable freaks. They came in together, they must go out together. The comet visited the Earth around this time in 1910. Twain, impatient, died a month before. Eduardo Galeano, Children of the Days. I also wanted to show you this other book that I picked up for next to nothing in a secondhand store. It's called An American Postal Portrait. And it's old photos. Somebody. Old photos, it's sort of a celebration of the post office. Photos, you can't really see it, but just of different eras of the post office. all the way back to the Pony Express, and some warehouses, huge warehouses of postal processing. And here's Gerald Ford signing something. Here's an airport that has all U.S. Postal Service jets and time exposure lights all the way around. I really cherish this book because I was with Lenny Shames when I bought the book in Brunswick, Maine, and Lenny is a retired postal worker, postal engineer, and that's kind of why we decided to buy this. And this is part of our enormous photograph book library that we have upstairs, and we bring some down occasionally to feature different photographers and photography books. I'm obsessed with the post office. I buy every commemorative sheet that comes out and have for 40 years. I have many binders full of these commemoratives, and I have certain really weird friends that come over and want to bring them out and see them, and others who, no thanks, Dean. Anyway, have a look at this book, and as far as announcements, that's pretty much all I have, except I mentioned my birthday, and that night, which is next Friday, May 24th, there's a concert right here featuring yours truly. My name is Dean Stevens, and I'm a musician, and I'm playing a concert that's a benefit for this church, and keeping the lights on and the payroll of this building. We are in a dire situation. We have not got a restaurant tenant on the first floor, which is our sustenance, our bread and butter. We're just making it with generous loans from several members. And if you'd like to be among those who are willing to believe in us, that we are well on the way to having another restaurant tenant on the first floor with a long-term lease and a really assured financial future for this church. If you're interested in helping us that way, no interest, short-term loan, be in touch with Charlie, our treasurer, or me, our administrator, or Sandra Harris, our president. End of pitch. And moment to bring back up Terry Kitchen for what we call the musical message. A couple of songs we get to hear from Terry. Thanks.
Happy early birthday.
Thanks.
So I'm here today from the village of Roslindale, which is on the southern edge of Boston. And this is a true story that happened in a CVS parking lot, like so many of life's important moments. And please join in once you get the hang of the chorus. So this woman left her lights on, her car wouldn't start. I had jumper cables in my trunk, but I was late and it was raining. I was wearing my good suit. I said, sorry, but I have to run. I rolled back up my window. I started to pull out, and I heard my conscience whisper, turn this car around. Life is hard enough, time is short enough, hearts are scarred enough. From the hurting that we do, love is scarce enough, joy is rare enough, we're all strong enough to help each other through. Today you might need me, tomorrow I'll need you. So let's not turn away, life is hard enough. There's a family church, a father and 2 girls. The mother lost her fight this year. My wife's got the youngest in her Sunday school class. Now every lesson's crystal clear. We can't stop bad things from happening. We can't even know why. But we can give each other courage and comfort when we cry. Life is hard enough, time is short enough, hearts are scarred enough. From the hurting that we do, love is scarce enough, joy is rare enough, we're all strong enough to help each other through. Today you might need me, tomorrow I'll need you. So let's not turn away, life is hard enough. And maybe it's the little things that make it all worthwhile, those simple acts of kindness that make each other smile. Life is hard enough, time is short enough, hearts are scarred enough. From the hurting that we do, love is scarce enough, joy is rare enough, we're all strong enough to help each other through. Today you might need me, tomorrow I'll need you. So let's not turn away, life is hard enough. So let's not turn away, life is hard enough. Life is hard enough. Life is hard enough. Life is hard enough. Well, thank you. I'm very looking forward to hearing our speakers this morning about a pretty important topic. When I was in college out in California at Occidental, I was involved in the peace movement there, and managed to get myself arrested a couple times, and spent a few hours behind bars. And a few hours was kind of hard to make it through, especially times when you were isolated. So anyone who was able to survive, longer in that situation, it's just such a challenge. So I wanted to play this song. So this is called "I Can't Remember Life Before I Got Here." I can tell you what day it is. I can tell you how long it's been. But brother, don't ask me how long it will be. This door only swings one way. I'm here and I'm here to stay. So what you get, boy, is what you see. And I can't remember life before I got here. I can't remember life before I got here. I can tell you about my day, same as my yesterday. Same as tomorrow, but it take my word. On Sunday the Father comes to talk about what I done. No sense keeping secret, son, from the Lord. But I can't remember life before I got here. No, I can't remember life before I got here. Hey, Captain America. Hey, man, we're scared of you. Got this flag tattoo, the guards make fun of it. But my whole country now is just 10 feet around. It's love it or leave it, so I guess I love it. And I can't remember life before I got here. I can't remember life before I got here. The others, they'd sell their souls, trying to make parole. Suck it up for good behavior. But me, if I died tonight, I'd be back by the morning light. I got 2 more lifetimes left to pay for. And I can't remember life before I got here. No, I can't remember life before I got here. Oh no, I can't remember life before I can't remember life before I can't remember life before I got here.
Thank you, Terry Kitchen. Hey, I just got handed a paper plate, and our beloved Steve McNeil asked me to announce this, and I'm very happy to announce it because it comes from our beloved Steve McNeil, and also because of what it says. It says, could you mention, Dean, that today is May 19th, 1890 to 1925. Oh, I get it. One of them, the birthdays of both Ho Chi Minh and Malcolm X. One of them born in 1890, the other in 1925. So thank you, Steve. Glad to mention that. Well, I gotta say that we are a speaker series, and we have a different speaker every Sunday, and oftentimes the introduction is basically reading biomaterial off their CV or off our newsletter or whatever. This morning is very personal for me because two of these are members of Community Church, and one is maybe going to become one, even though he lives in Greenfield, but has become just a really wonderful friend, and we look forward to presenting more material. So I'm going to start with, let's see, where should I start? How about right in the middle, behind me? You might not be able to see, but and I'll do all 3 introductions, and then we'll hear the speakers. First, Calvin Arey came to our attention through our good friends John and Judith Felton, and has been here every single Sunday since. And it's a beautiful thing. Has become a member, and hearing his story and his work in this day and age and in this moment is just a true inspiration. Then there's Don Wright, who I mentioned lives in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Came to me through our mutual beloved friend Sue Kranz, my musician friend, who now lives in Eniguerada, El Salvador, a village that I am happy to say I turned her on to 25 years ago, and she didn't go for 23 years, and then 2 years later, 2 years ago, she goes back and loves it so much that she's living there now, pretty much permanently, Sue Kranz. And Don Wright, Sue said to me, you have to meet Don. You have to find a reason to bring Don to the church, and that happened. And we've been in constant touch, working on a possible screening of his film. Maybe sometime this summer, we'll give you more details about that. Then I'll leave the best for last. Not to discount the first two, but just because 2 years and 3 months ago, I went to Norfolk MCI and picked up Lee. He was free, and we spent the day in joy about that, and getting things going for Lee, transitioning into a house, and getting with his probation officer, and having a nice lunch, and all the stuff you would do when you got out after you'd been in for a long time. And Lee has since become a really trusted, true friend. If you want to come any Saturday all summer long, Lee and I will be at the Roslindale Farmers Market selling coffee, fresh roasted coffee from a village in El Salvador, and beautiful hand-sewn crafts from another village in El Salvador. And Lee has also become a member of the board of trustees of this church. So that's the short bio, and you're going to hear a lot more from each one of these. And we're going to start with Calvin Arey.
Well, thanks, Dean, and Bill Withers. That was a great start of being on me. I'm going to start at the beginning of the pandemic in early 2020, March of 2020. I hunkered down at home like many of my friends, and none of us knew what was going to happen. And at the time, I had lived in Boston for over 25 years with nobody knowing a thing about my past. And I was on track to take what I'm about to tell you to the grave. But then in May, the strangest thing, I got an email from a friend of mine, very distant relative up in Yukon Territory in Northwest Canada. And she was reading a book, The Virginia State Penitentiary, A Notorious History. And she sent me an email and she said, Calvin, there's somebody in that book with your name. Is that you? And I had to sit down when I got that email, but my past that I thought was long behind me, came rushing back. And I fessed up and I told her it was. And I ordered the book that day, read it, and got in touch with the author, Dale Brumfield, who lives in Virginia. He's a journalist and author. He's published a number of books. And he immediately wanted to tell my story. Because in this book tells the story of the Landon versus Royster case, which was a prison civil rights case that began in the mid-60s. And it ended up desegregating the entire Virginia prison system. And it got rid of punishments such as bread and water and solitary confinement. And before I agreed to have him tell my story, I wanted to tell friends, the friends that I made in Boston. I didn't want them to find out about my past in any other way than from me. And many of them are here in the audience today that were present when I did a Zoom meeting to about 40 of my senior friends, and all except two. There's two I confided in at first, and and it was news to all of them, you know, about my past. And I had no idea what the reaction was gonna be, but I was so gratified that it was very supportive. And supportive to this day, because, you know, the audience is filled with people that were present that day. So Dale wrote the story, and it wound up being a cover story in Richmond Magazine, down in Richmond, Virginia, which is where the Virginia State Penitentiary was located. And again, I had no idea what the response would be to that, but what happened was a copy of that magazine got into the women's maximum security prison in Virginia, in Fluvanna. And the law clerk there was a woman named, excuse me, Shebri Dillon. And she wrote me a letter. Not to ask me for anything, but to thank me for what I had done 50 years before. And we began a correspondence. And at the time I was reading a book called Our Class by Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges teaches 2 nights a week in a maximum security prison for men in the state of New Jersey. And he had written this book, Our Class, Trauma and Transformation in an American Prison. And I asked Shebri if she'd read the book, and if they had any books by Chris Hedges in the prison library. And they didn't, which did surprise me, because many prison libraries are underfunded, and they don't have very many good books. And so I sent her the book. And what happened was people saw her reading the book, and a list formed of about 12 different people that got in a line to read it. They wanted to read it after she got through. And she wrote and told me about this. And at the, you know, that started me thinking, because you know, I was familiar with the autobiography of Malcolm X, who was mentioned a little earlier. And Malcolm said that people don't realize that a person's whole life can be changed, you know, by just one book. You know, I'll be a mess here trying to get through here, but, you know. So, I started sending more books. And, you know, I knew what Malcolm had said was true, because it was true in my life, and I was finding out that it was true in my experiences in sending books. I want to mention one other author, which was another book I sent, Dwayne Betts. Some of you may have heard of him, but he got sentenced to 9 years in Virginia back in the 1990s for carjacking. And when he was there in solitary confinement, one day he cried out, "Please, would somebody send me a book?" And a book was slid under his cell door, Black Poets by Dudley Randall. And Dwayne, to this day, doesn't know who sent that book, but it sparked a transformation in his life. And he became a poet. He's published 3 books of poetry. He published his memoir, A Question of Freedom, which is another book I sent in. And when he got out after that 9 years, he went to college, went to Yale, graduated from Yale Law School, became an attorney, and founded an organization called Freedom Reads, which installs 500 book libraries in cell blocks in prisons across the United States. They just completed their 4th Virginia prison. They did the 3rd and 4th 2 days in a row, one on one day, one the next. 12 libraries in one prison, 13 in the other. 500 books in each one of those libraries. They're put in the cell blocks, so the prisoners have easy access. And he intends to work his way through all the prisons. It's about 30 prisons in Virginia. And so they're all done. So his was another book that I sent in. And then on August the 4th, 2022, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here and telling you this. I finished reading this book here, Solitary, by Albert Woodfox. Albert Woodfox spent 44 years in solitary confinement in Angola, in Louisiana. And it was August the 4th when I finished that book, and I went to reach out to him. I picked up my phone and I Googled his name, and he had died that morning. So, at the time, I had a number of these little freedom libraries going down in Virginia, and I determined that I'd name those libraries after him. And, they caught on, and I had read something a prisoner named Terrence Vaughan had written in a publication down in Virginia. It's a newsletter by the Coalition for Justice. And, Terrence seemed to, have his head in the right place. So I wrote him a letter, sent him a copy of that Richmond Magazine story, and offered to start sending him books. And Terrence is a barber. And what he would do, he'd read the books and then bring the books to the barber shop. And he'd get somebody in the chair and prop the books on the mirror in front. So as he's cutting the guy's hair, they're looking at the book, and without fail, it started a conversation. Now, this made my day hearing this, because he was in a perfect position to talk about these books, and 9 times out of 10, the guy getting a haircut left for the book. Which I call these freedom libraries, based on freedom libraries that operated in the southern United States during the Civil Rights Movement, when black people were not welcomed in the public libraries. And what they did was they started libraries in like a private home, and they would loan out the books, and they get passed around from hand to hand. None of the prison officials are involved in what I'm doing. Only in blocking books from time to time. Just a couple of days ago, I got an email from a prisoner in one of the prisons in Virginia. I'm not going to mention which one. I don't want to get him in trouble, but I had sent him the autobiography of Malcolm X, and they rejected it. It's amazing that 32 years after that book was published, and it's been named on so many lists as one of the top 10 or one of the top 100 nonfiction books of the 20th century. And here's some prison official, still getting in the way of a book like that being delivered to a prisoner. So I want to finish off. There'll be time for questions and answers later, but I just wanted to finish off. Several months ago, I became affiliated with the prison book program in Quincy, Mass. They've been around since 1972. They actually sent me books when I was in prison in Connecticut in the 70s, and they've sort of adopted me. What I do is a little different than what they do. They respond to prisoner requests for books, and what I do is send prisoners the books I think they should read. So it's a little different, but I fit in there somehow. And with that, we'll let the other speakers say a few words, and we'll have time later for some questions and answers. Thank you.
came to Massachusetts from Virginia back in the early 80s. The fishing industry brought me here. And when I stopped fishing, I moved into a community in Boston and got involved with a young lady, and we moved in together. And eventually we went out, and she had she was assaulted by another guy in a club, and we were drinking at a time when I was very young, emotionally insecure, and very ignorant to a lot of different things that having to do with me and my own personal growth. I approached the guy later on that night, last call, and we got into an argument. The argument escalated. We went outside. He lost his life. And I have to live with that every day of my life now for something that was easily resolved. Something ridiculous. So, in 1988, I went to trial, first-degree murder, and found guilty on the second, which gave me an opportunity to make parole after 15 years. So, being not from Massachusetts, I was young, scared, angry, confused, and found me guilty. And I went to Walpole, and this was in the summer of 1988, and I'll never forget the feeling that I had walking through the gate. First day, I had thought to myself, just gonna stay low, persona non grata. I'm not gonna stand out. I'm gonna try to blend in, stay out of everybody's way. And once I got through the orientation block, I knew that this was gonna be a venture that I might not survive. Some bodies were going out. Sometimes every week, there was a body bag going out the gate. And I stayed there for approximately 8-9 months, and I stayed out of the way long enough to get classified out. Went to Norfolk, and it was unbelievable the difference between Walpole and Norfolk at that time. Norfolk, just so you understand the environment that I was rolling into. Norfolk was first designed by a gentleman by the name of Howard Gill. He was a graduate of Harvard, a socialist, and when he designed Norfolk back in 1927, he designed it in a way that there would be a church, a school, an auditorium, and a quad, and then the units that surround it. And what he did was he used the labor from then Charlestown prison, which was overcrowded and it was about to be closed. But they used the labor from the Charlestown prison to build Norfolk. So they appropriated enough money to build the wall going around it, and they have pictures. So I just recently saw the pictures that of the prisoners that they were busting out there to build this place. And it has minus the inmates walking around. If you saw it from an aerial view, you would swear that it's a college campus. But when I arrived at Norfolk, the first thing that I thought was, we're gonna do everything I can to better myself. So, I went to work at the industries and learned a skill, and was welding, and I enrolled in a pre-college course. And at that time, there was the Pell Grants, which financed all of the schools that were coming in. We had Massasoit, UMass, and BU that were coming in every day of the week in school there. So I enrolled, got through the first course, and then UMass I was enrolled in, and continued with about 26 credits. And then it was at a time when Dukakis was already out, and Will was coming in, and he came in with the philosophy that he was going to introduce the prisoners of Massachusetts to the thrills of breaking rocks. And the whole mentality around that prison changed. And while I was working, the people that I was working around, the instructors, their mentality changed. And I didn't accept it too well. So one day I was fired, but I was still in school. And I went to the library, and I looked up the regulations having to do with industries, because it's a separate part of the prison. And the regulations that I discovered had the force and effect of law. So I quickly realized that it's a 3-step process, and he just arbitrarily fired me. So I fought it and forced them to take me back. I beat the D report, and forced them to take me back. And it was very gratifying. So I started spending a little more time in the law library, and then we noticed that there was asbestos that was as old as this prison. That was all over the prison. It was everywhere. It was in the attics. It was in the crawl spaces. It was in the pipe chase. It was in the tunnels. Asbestos, broken, friable asbestos was everywhere. So I learned a little about the Civil Code while I was spending time in the library, and all the while I'm going through school. And then in 1994, Clinton signed a bill. It was a crime bill, and what it did was pulled the Pell Grants from the prisons, and all of the colleges left. They all bailed out, and but the only college that stayed was BU. And Ma Barker, who ran the prison education program from BU, God bless her soul, she determined to keep that college and that prison. And I'm matriculated over to BU and continued on. And I met some very good professors. They were great. They were very genuine. And at that time, started to fight over the asbestos. They were refusing to acknowledge that it even exists in the prison. We would put in a request to have it removed, and then they would come back and say, we investigated it, we checked with the maintenance department, and they declared that there is no such asbestos that exists in the prison. And so we've got our hands on some one document, and it verified that it did exist. And I filed a lawsuit in the First Circuit Court. And of all the judges that suit landed on, was Nancy Gardner. What a stroke of luck. So everything that we submitted from here on, every motion for discovery and for appropriated funds to have someone come in and do an examination. And she allowed every motion. And they came in one day and they had their ladders, their sniffers, and lights, and then they found it all and went back and reported it to the court. And it was eggs in their face. They didn't like it. And my notion of staying out of sight, staying low and quiet, persona non grata, went out the window. Now I'm a target because we won the lawsuit. And they came in and they had to remove it, and it cost, what they declared was the taxpayers would have to foot the bill for like $2.1 million to have this removed from the prison. But they did start removing it, and I started making frequent visits to solitary for not standing for count when I was, being out of place when I wasn't. But that was okay. I had my day in court, and she allowed me to win that case. And I felt pretty good about that, and I felt pretty good about the idea that in 1999 I graduated BU, cum laude, on the dean's list. And it was gratifying feeling. But that was in 1999, and eventually I did make parole, and I was returned a couple of times for ridiculous reasons, technical, but this last journey was very enlightening, because as a member of the church, they were sending flyers for every event here and every speaker. I knew about every speaker and every issue, and I look forward to getting those in the mail every week. And when I was coming up for parole, I put in a request to have representation from students at Northeastern, and I had Mia Lynn and another young lady represent me at the parole hearing, but in the interim, they were coming up every week in preparation for the hearing. And by then, they're going through a file that's like this thick. And she knew everything about me. She was in touch with what family I had left. And she spoke with Dean, and she spoke with Paul, all my supporters, and everyone else. And she knew my history. And as we were preparing, I learned that they were going to be graduating the very next April, I think it was in May, sorry. And so I was so confident that I was going to be successful that I told her I'm that confident that I will be at your graduation. How about that? She says, you're on. And she has been one of my best friends since I've been released. Both her and her husband are very good supporters of me, and between her and my friend Dean, I wouldn't be where I am today, and in the state that I'm in, and I'm in a good place today, and I appreciate and I'm thankful for you guys listening to my story. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Don, and I totally appreciate the story that you bring and the idea that no matter who you are, you still need somebody to support you. And I come from that same place. And I want to say that my story and my journey is about redemption and how I figured that out. Because I spent a lifetime being a taker and not a giver. I grew up in Boston in the South End, Cathedral Projects, 1957. Little boy running around the project. Got a bicycle. More than likely I probably built it myself. And I should travel throughout Boston. I should ride my bike through all these neighborhoods. And one of my significant places where I used to ride and felt safe was Cambridge. And I should ride Harvard Square and felt safe. And then I learned I couldn't ride my bike in the North End. I couldn't ride my bike in Charlestown. I couldn't ride my bike in South Boston. I couldn't ride my bike in Roslindale. As I got older, 11, 12 years old, I began to find out why. Because of the color of my skin, I could not go to those places. And I learned the hard way, because I was hard-headed. I would go anyways. Take that chance. Found out the hard way. One day I'm riding my bike. I used to go fishing because I lived close to South Boston. Only thing that separated us was the highway. And I should ride my bike to the ocean, to what they call Castle Island, and go fishing. And I come back on my bike with all these fish. And one day, I was riding my bike through South Boston, coming down D Street the way I always did. The next thing I know, I hear people yelling and screaming. There goes a nigger on a bike. And I realized, I saw people coming out. And as I began to pedal more and more, I realized my life was in danger. And then I made it back just across the highway to the South End. I grew up next to the Holy Cathedral Church in Boston. But I faced racism as a young boy, only a few blocks away. And then I learned that this is the reason why I could not go to these places, was because of the color of my skin. And as I began to grow and begin to learn, and I went to school, and for whatever reason, the school that I was in the South End, the black kids, the white kids, the Spanish kids, the Asian kids, we all got along. I couldn't understand how come in school we all got along. And at that time, I began to start my journey to junior high. And I was fortunate enough through the Catholic Church to go to a private school. here in Back Bay on Marlborough Street. It's called the Kingsley School. And the church paid for me to go to this school. And in this school, they had all Jewish kids from Brookline, Newton, and they had no idea who I was and where I come from. But we got along. I used to go to the Jewish kid's house in Newton. It's the first time I seen a black maid at someone's house. I seen it on TV, but that was TV. And so every weekend, I went to this Jewish kid's house. Parents welcomed me. I got off the trolley. There was a taxi waiting to pick me up, to bring me to their home. They had a pool in the backyard. And the maid brought me a can of Coke as I laid in the lawn chair at these people's house. At the end of the day, I get back on the train, on the trolley, and go back to the South End. I went to high school, local high school, Boston Trade. There, this is when I learned how to fight, to defend myself. All boys school. But I had already come from a place where I had learned to fight, to defend myself. And I stayed in that school just 2 years because I didn't like to fight. Transferred to another school. That's when busing came. And in busing, they sent me to South Boston. The first day the buses lined up in front of the Catholic church, all the kids came out, got on the bus. I was one of those kids. 3 hours later, the bus came back, all the windows smashed out, kids terrified to death. The next day, the buses came, no kids got on that bus. I missed a lot of school because of that. And then, I took on the streets and the street life. And when they say that it's an environmental factor of who I am and where I come from, it's true. When you're a young person, the environment in which you grow up in will make you who you are. And that made me a criminal. I learned from the people on the street how to survive, how to make money. I was a young guy, downtown Boston. I used to shine shoes like my brother did before me, like my father did before me, to help support my sisters and my brothers and my mother and my father at that time. But I learned downtown Boston, the bright lights and the glamour was so amazing to me that I wanted to be like them. And when I say like them, I'm talking about what we call today, we call them gangsters today. Prostitution, drugs. And that became a big influence to me. And I was influenced by that. And then I started to learn from the older guys crime and how to think like a criminal. And then I became a criminal thinker. But I still went to school though, because my mother told all her kids, you will go to school. And I went back to school. But after school, I went right back downtown Boston. And this is the late 70s. And this is where I learned. This is how I became a prisoner. Because I wanted to take shortcuts in my life. I want to have money. I want to look like those people that I saw every day. And I started to be a criminal. I started out breaking into factories. In those days in South End, there's a lot of factories. As I got older, 18 years old, I used to have a fast car that I built myself. I was very mechanically inclined. And I had guys I grew up with whose fathers were gangsters. And my first act of criminality, I stole a liquor truck. And I brought the liquor truck to a place, dropped it off, got picked up, went back to the bar and waited. And the bartender would come over with a paper bag and hand me the money. And I remember I was influenced by that first act. And I didn't stop for 40 years. I've been into every prison in Massachusetts. I've been from Maine to Florida. Trying to figure out, why do I keep doing this to myself? And in my mind, I wanted to blame where I come from. I wanted to blame the white man. I wanted to blame somebody but myself. And for years, in and out of prison, I was one of those guys. I was a role model guy when I was in prison. One time a sheriff said to me, "You might as well just stay here because you do good here." And he was right. My last name is Wright. He used to tell me, 2 wrongs don't make it right. It took a long time for me to learn that. And at some point I got out, met my partner, raised some kids in the suburbs of Amherst, because I knew I didn't want to raise my kids in the city of Boston. And so those things worked out. And then came the drug addiction. Was never really drug addicted before as a young person. Smoked a little pot, drank a little beer, had a fast car, played rock and roll music. I played hockey. I skied. I wasn't the typical black man that you meet. Couldn't dance, didn't play basketball. So I was considered by my friends, they would say, "Hey, you know, you're just white orientated, that's all." But that worked for me. It put me in a better place every time. And so after many years of doing prison, I got out of prison. My last sentence, I was considered to be a habitual offender. It carries a certain amount of time. No less than 10, no more than 20. I go in front of a judge. My crimes are breaking and entering, forgery and uttering, scheme by check. I'm not a bad guy. Until I figured out why I was doing this. And it only was for the love of money. That's all. And so I go in front of this last judge in Western Mass, and he says to me, "Why shouldn't I give you the 15 years they recommend?" He told the lawyer to sit down. "Mr. Wright, could you tell me why I shouldn't give you the 15 years that they recommend?" That was the moment of truth. I had to tell the truth, tell on myself. And so I did. And by the grace of God, he gave me 5 years. It was the most powerful 5 years I ever did in prison in my life because I worked on myself the whole time I was there. I changed myself. One of the significant things that I did was to tell the truth from where I stand. And today, that's what I do today. I give you all my truth. I say, all the secrets are out. I got none. And today I'm this guy, by the grace of God and a goddess, that I do for other people. My partner would say, he gives away everything he's got. Because I learned that that's what it's really about. It's the gift of giving, not the gift of taking. Because I spent a lifetime being a taker. But today, I am a man who gives what I got. I come from Greenfield, Massachusetts. We got, just like Boston, we got drug addicts, homeless people. I'm so blessed that I was gifted a house by a woman to take in women and children. I had this house for 7 years, and I did that. And recently, I just sold the house or gave away the house to a Mexican family who had lost their home in a fire. And today, I still do that same work. I am out there on the street, on the corner, providing tents, blankets, sleeping bags, toothpaste, socks, whatever people donate to me as an individual, I give to them. I have 15 years out of prison. Sometimes I wake up and I think to myself, how in the hell did you do that? And it's only because other people. It's only because of that. Because I couldn't do it myself before. And today I spend my time in a community where I give of myself. And I also want to talk about the gift that I would receive 2 years ago. I met a guy, I was 19, he was 14, came from a prep school, Phillips Academy, Andover, looking to do a film, documentary on busing in Boston, in the South End Cathedral Project. And I said to him, what are you, crazy? Those drug dealers are not gonna let a white guy with a camera come through here. But only because I had power in my project where I grew up at, that we made it happen. And we made a documentary of a 10-year-old boy who's still alive today, who went to Iraq War, Desert Storm. And my friend, movie producer, came back from California with this film that we had made in 1976 and wanted to redo it. So I spent the last 2 years blessed with this man who is a filmmaker and a big time one, and we made a documentary of myself, the 10-year-old boy now who's 55 years old, and his family. And last week I went to New York to what they call Tribeca Film Festival. And I met Robert De Niro, who is one of the owners of that. He didn't see the film because he was going to be on Jimmy Fallon that evening, so he didn't have time. But that was okay with me. And so today I am grateful to be a part of a community, because I used to spend my life being an outsider, didn't welcome in community, wasn't welcome, you know, because I wanted to be a gangster. But today, it's not that way today. I'm grateful for people. I love people. And I will spend the rest of my life giving what I have to support those who are marginalized. Like I'm marginalized still. But I might have a little bit more to give. And so I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
I wrote down 5 words during this talk, and I think that these 3 have given us a new definition of these 5 words. Redemption, atonement, forgiveness, empathy. And the last one, which you might not know, that I love and cherish, potlatch. I don't know if you've ever heard that word before, but it's one that I, like these 3, want to embrace in my own life. Potlatch is a word from northwestern United States and southwestern Canada native people. And potlatch is you are made you are judged and you are made more honorable and more respected and by what you give. We heard Don's message about what you give, and so let's think about that. Just like them, I'm transitioning into my 8th decade next week. That sounds horrible. It's just like that. But I am so looking forward to it, and you know, and bring it on, bring it on. I hope I, like these 3, can learn the meaning of those 5 words. Terry Kitchen has one more song for us, and thank you all for being here. We depend on your kindness and largesse. There's a basket in the back. There's going to be an email sign-up list go around during this last song, and if you're online, there's a website that's called communitychurchofboston.org, and there is a credit card or PayPal function on that website. So thank you for your generosity, and thank you, Terry Kitchen, for your songs.
Don't forget questions.
Yeah, we'll have a Q&A and a conversation after Terry.
Well, it was very powerful and moving to hear all those stories. And so every few seconds I would change my mind about what possible song I could do after hearing all those stories. And I thought of this song by my friend Tom Persado Rao. And it's called Can I See Myself in You? If I met you on the corner, would I know you as you are? Would I take you for a stranger and brush past you at the door? If you called me, would I hear you? Would I walk away too soon? If I lingered for a moment, would I see myself in you? If I fought you as a soldier, if I had you in my sights, would you ask me to remember who imagined I was right? If you witnessed my surrender, do I know what I would do? If you held me like a brother, would I see myself in you? Well, I dreamed my end was near, I was almost gone. If I dream that dream from here, can I still come home? If you called me, would I hear you? Do I know what I would do? If you held me as a brother, would I see myself in you? If you held me like my mother, would I see myself in you?
Ah, found it. We have a cordless mic that could go around and have any comments or questions for our three distinguished, wonderful guests.
I have a quick question for Calvin. Two questions. One, you said you sent books to the prisoners, but I thought a person couldn't send books. An individual couldn't do that. So could I send a book, or how does that work? And secondly, how do we help you achieve your goal?
Individuals can send books I want to say for at least a year, I was sending books to prisoners myself out of my Social Security check through Amazon. They had to be new books, they couldn't be used. But then several months ago, I affiliated with the Prison Book Program down in Quincy. They're a 501c3, so donations to them are tax deductible. And if my name is mentioned, I'll have some influence in how those funds are spent. I want to say one thing I forgot to say when I was up here before is those articles in Richmond Magazine and more is available online. Just Google my name and there's a bunch of stuff. And I want to say about Shebri, that woman in Virginia that I correspond with. She's a first-time offender. It was a nonviolent white-collar offense, and she was given 30 years. And she's already been in prison for 8, and she has 4 children. You know, and this is just one example of. The thing is, there's almost 2 million prisoners locked up in the United States, and each one of them is a story. If you look at that figure, 2 million, you say, oh, what can I do? But I'm reminded of Brian Stevenson when he talks about proximity. You know, when you get close to one prisoner, just one person, you can find out what you can do. You know, oftentimes there's a need that you find that you could fulfill. Thank you. By the way, there's some literature there for those that are in the room in the back about how to make a contribution to prisoners, to the book program down in Quincy. And online, they have a presence online. It's the Prison Book Program, Quincy, Mass.
Well, all three of you are incredibly impressive and incredibly moving. But Calvin, we knew you, the seniors, as an upstanding citizen who was an autodidact, who was incredibly smart, who was collecting books, who knew everything about everything, was a wonderful, respected realtor. And then you told us about this, and can you talk about the role what got you there, the role of alcoholism, what got you into trouble?
Thanks, Jane. You know, I'm an alcoholic, and the first half of my life was spent in and out of prisons in 3 different states: Virginia, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. Like the guys here, I made it all. I've been in Walpole, 1978, Norfolk, Shirley, different pre-release centers, jails. And I never could stop drinking. You know, every crime I was ever involved in my life had alcohol involved. And when I was in jail, the last time I was arrested, when I was awaiting trial, I'd been in jail a couple of months, so I was sober. And they announced that there was going to be an AA meeting. And I went to that meeting, and there was some speakers from outside came in to speak. And one of them was an older guy, younger then I think than I am now, but he looked out upon the prisoners that were there, and he said, if any of you have ever had a problem stopping drinking, I've got news for you. You don't have that problem anymore. You know, whether you noticed it or not, you've been stopped. And he said that changed everything. You know, it's now your problem is no longer trying to stop drinking. You know, all you have to do is just not start again. And you know, it sounds simple, but that was like a light bulb went off in my head. And you know, I wound up going to prison. After that, I got sentenced. I wound up finishing that prison sentence, and I've been sober now for over 35 years. You know, and I had nothing at all to do with stopping. You know, I never could stop. I couldn't stop now, but I just never started again. You know, and that's the only reason I'm here, and I've had a life, been able to have half a life anyway.
Thank you.
I want to thank all three of you too. It was great. Very moving being here and talk about empathy, you know. Thanks for sharing your story. I have a question for Calvin, but Don or Lee, if you want to comment also. Was there one book that changed your life? If there was, would you name it?
Ed goes with me to a lot of prison initiative programs at the different colleges and universities, and he knows whenever any formerly incarcerated panelists are there, and I'm in the audience, that's the question I ask. You know, if there was a particular book that had an impact on their life, you know, I'm really interested in getting an answer to that. So, anyways, the one that I'll name that had that kind of an impact on my life was A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I read that book. You know, he was an Auschwitz survivor in the Holocaust, and I was given that book in the very first college course I ever took in English literature. I was still in prison in Virginia at the time, and I still have that book at home. I should have brought that with me. 1973. In June of '73, I was given that book. I've read it a couple of dozen times over the years. And anyways, that was the book that had impacted me.
For me, I would say the book is a book that was given to me. I was in the Christian program, and a woman gave me a book, and the author is Kahlil Gibran. And there's several of them, but the Son of Man would be, you know, the one that I've been reading for 40 years. You know, I don't have any other books but that one because that works for me. You know, then I find out later that Gibran grew up in the South End, and he has a shrine in the South End where I used to hang out at, and I didn't, you know, and I used to play with the grandkids. You know, or, you know, the nephews or whatever they were, but I went to school with them, you know, the Kahlil family. So that would be the book, the Son of Man.
That would be, there's also a monument right in Copley Square, right out, you can see it from the window here, right across the street from the main entrance library.
Oh, really?
It's presently, since Copley is completely torn up right now, you can't see it, but I'm sure they'll put it back. It's a huge monument and plaque to Kahlil Gibran.
Okay.
We have Charlie who wants to join us and say hello.
Oh, hi. I know you talked about it a little bit, but the parole system in Massachusetts. For being such a quote unquote liberal state, the parole system is horrendous here, and I wouldn't want to make just add a little bit more to what you've said about the parole system. Thanks.
So, opine on that one? Yes or no?
Yes, yeah, I can offer an opinion about the parole board in Massachusetts. What it very much lacks is a diverse membership from different aspects of the community. In other words, out of the 7 executive board members, 6 are from law enforcement. And that's their background, is law enforcement. And the statute from early years, which has not been adhered to, clearly states that it should be from a diverse segment of the community, such as professors, someone from sociology, some from the psychological field, but they are having, every time that they do have a nomination for a new board member, Jean Trotstein is right on the forefront, and she is gathering support for every hearing that they have leading up to those votes. But I think that has been the major problem with the parole board recently. But in a good light, their success ratio has been going up because they have been releasing a lot more prisoners now, as opposed to 10 years ago or so, when there was a shooting in, I believe it was Burlington. There was a robbery there, and it happened to be a lifer on parole that shot a police officer and killed him. And then the outgoing governor at that time, he wiped out every parole member that signed that prisoner's release. Anyone that signed his release, they were shown the door, and then they brought in all law enforcement. And but on a good note, things have moderated, they have changed, and they are releasing a lot more deserving people at this time.
And I will add to that we attended 2 of Lee's parole hearings, both Paul Donlin and I and several other members of the church. And the first one, it took them almost a year to even make a decision on a hearing that happened a year before. It wasn't like it was fresh in their minds anymore. It was just like unconscionable that was happening. And the second one was much faster, but I hope that phenomenon is completely behind us forever, that there's that enormous lag of time. Here is Susan.
Thank you for this. I really appreciate how brave you are and to stand for yourselves inside a place that I'm not sure if I would survive either. So thank you for being here today.
was just notified, as a matter of fact, just 4 months ago, that I've been selected for jury duty. And so, well, you know, I told those at work that I work at the Hope House right across the street down here, and for drug and alcohol treatment, and let them know that I was going to be absent for jury duty on, I think it was a date in April. So I went to the courtroom. It was in town here, and for some reason it was just delayed, and I never got another notice. But I will submit to jury duty. I will go if they'll hear me, but most likely, if they check my background, they'll strike me. I'm sure of that. But I would say that, you know, it is an honorable thing to do your civic duty and sit on a jury and vote your own conscience, your own, as you see fit to the laws as they describe the law, as the jury instructions are and the statute is, and if the facts meet that, then you have to vote the way you see it, and that is the American way. And today I'm all for the American way.
I'll say a few words. I've aged out now. I don't get those notices anymore, but I mentioned that I spent 25 years in Boston with nobody knowing anything about my past. And so when I was called for jury duty, I didn't feel that I could take the chance on getting accepted for a jury and then getting struck off because of my past. So I would always tell the judge that, you know, I was prejudiced against prosecutors. And I was excused every time. And, you know, so I made it through. And so I forget how old you gotta be before you stop sending you the notices, but I'm 82 now, so I'm beyond the age.
Sorry, I was getting the clipboard. Go ahead, Don.
Okay. I've never been requested for a jury duty. My, you know, feeling about that is that it's one of, you know, a passing judgment on someone else, you know, and even though they give you what they call the facts of the case, but there's other factors of why that person may be in that position that they're in, you know, and can you live with that when you make that decision of whether they're guilty or not guilty? You know, can you live with it? You know, so for me, you know, I just, you know, what they say in AA is that I have no opinion on outside issues, and that way I stay safe. You know, but that's a hard one. That's really a hard one. You have to think about what you're gonna do, because someone's life is in the balance of that. You know, whether you and you may believe that they're not guilty, but everyone around you may believe that they're guilty. You know, and then you become the holdout person, and no one's gonna like you. You can't win. So I have no opinion on an outside issue when it comes to that.
And may I add, as someone who has worked in the courtrooms for 40 years, that the obvious thing, which is that the jury system, kind of like democracy, is the worst one there is, except all the other ones. But also that the jury system, like everything else in the legal system and the capitalist system, is stacked against poor people, vulnerable people, people with no resources. I'm sure that Donald Trump had a whole team of jury advisors to to let the lawyers decide which ones to pick and which not to pick, and that's the long and short of it. Have we any other questions online, Amar? Well, thank you all for being here. Luis Guzman has prepared a beautiful lunch for us, and we have had a rich time together, and this is just so beautiful and personal. I'd like to tell everybody that we have a Members Behind Bars program, or there are 10 members behind bars. There were 10 before, and 3 of them, including Lee, got released, and now we have added three other ones, which are 3 of the Holy Land 5 Foundation prisoners. Holy Land Foundation was the entity to which we gave our annual Sacco and Vanzetti Award 2 years ago. Palestinian American wealthy businessmen who started a charity in the 90s that became very successful, and then happened 9/11 and the War on Terror, and these men whose purpose was to provide health, education, recreation to children in Gaza and the West Bank were arrested. Their foundation was closed, and they were tried, and three of them are still in prison, 2 of them doing 65 years. And so we're back to 10 members behind bars. We send them our monthly newsletters. We try to correspond with them as much as we can, especially around holidays. We send small money orders. Any of you who are interested in strengthening our membership of people behind bars and figuring out how better we can be in solidarity with them, especially with the book thing. I really look forward to Calvin telling us more about the power of books to influence and change lives, especially those who are behind bars, and that I hope that will continue, as it has always, to be a driving force behind our programming and what we do to reach out to people who are in prison, in hospitals, in psychiatric units, people who have mobility issues and can't be here in person. And I think of several members that the pastoral thing of being a sort of what I call a fake minister of the church is a really illuminating thing, and you suddenly wish you had 2 extra lives of yourself to be able to be doing stuff like paying visits and to prisons, to hospitals, to people who are mobility challenged. And that's what I hope our future at this church is about reaching out to people who we can help, who need us, and we need each other. And on that, I'll say thank you all for being here, and I hope you have a great week. Ketu Oladua is here next week, and he has accompanying him in Fort Wayne, Indiana, a musician whose name I don't remember. And it should be a really beautiful, rich time of poetry and solidarity. And so we will see you then. The week after that is June 2nd, and that is our annual members meeting to put in place a board of directors for the next year and to size up what we did during the past year. It's been both a really challenging and difficult financial year. It's also been a really rich year as far as programs and concerts and poetry readings and all kinds of stuff. Last Tuesday, we received the Veterans for Peace Walk, which they walked from Maine, and they're going to Washington, D.C., and they were here for a visit, and it was beautiful. It's all on YouTube. So we continue to try to do all that we can. I want to invite you to one more tomorrow night. It's going to be a remote live stream from the Theodore Parker Church in West Roxbury, and the speaker is named Linda Dittmar, who wrote a beautiful book called Tracing Homelands. Linda Dittmar was born in Palestine, was 10 years old when it became Israel, and it's her reflections back based on a few trips that she made in the early 2000s in search of traces of Palestine under what was built on top of it, which was Israel, and what was planted on top of it, which was trees to disappear the villages and villages and villages that there were. So that's tomorrow night, Linda Dittmar. You can find it on our YouTube channel or the regular community church link. You can find it there. 6:30 p.m. Is when we're going to start that program tomorrow evening with Linda Dittmar, and in solidarity with the Theodore Parker Church's organization called Diana's List, which is their organization that's working on Palestine, Israel, Gaza issues. And on that note, let's have a delicious lunch. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you all who joined us on Zoom and on the multiple YouTubes. And thanks to Amar Ahmad, our Zoomster, social media stir, for bringing us the ability to put us on Facebook and X and Rumble and Prumble and Bink and Dink. All those platforms, you can find us there, even if they don't exist. Bye, everybody.